need to focus on the singular issue of discussion on this program, which is politics. We have decided to move Talking Politics with Dotun Oladipo to its own channel on YouTube. It will be as enriching as it has been on the former channel. All we need you to do, as you did with the previous channel, is to subscribe to it, like its edition, and share with others. We hope to see you edition after edition. Welcome to the 6th episode of Talking Politics with Dotun Oladipo. I am your regular host, Dotun Oladipo, the managing editor of the Eagle Online. So many things are happening on the political scene in Nigeria. This is essentially because of the countdown to the 2023 elections. Two critical ones we'll be focusing on in this episode of Talking Politics with Dotun Oladipo. This will be the fallouts from the closure of the portal of the Independent National Electoral Commission for the nomination of candidates by political parties for national elections in 2023. And the second will be the fallout from the governorship election in Ekiti State, which was held on Saturday, that is, just yesterday. The results are in, and the All Progressives Congress and its candidate, Dotun Oladipo, have been declared winners. First, let's look at what has happened with the nomination for national elections. The Independent National Electoral Commission, as part of its mandate, had given political parties up to 6 p.m. on July 17, 2022, to submit the list of its candidates for national elections. And by national elections, we mean the presidential, National Assembly, and House of Representatives election for 2023. That deadline was met by all the parties. But for the major political parties, talking about 3 of them now, the People's Democratic Party, the All Progressives Congress, and Labour Party, drama preceded the submission of the names of their presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates. In the PDP, it appeared it was a good one and an easy process for the party. But within the party, it was obvious to followers that the choice of the vice presidential candidates was not an easy one. This was because there had been contention over who to choose between the Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, and his Delta State counterpart, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa. At the end of the day, the presidential candidate of the party, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, announced to a joyous crowd at the national headquarters of the party that his choice and that of the party for the vice presidential candidate slot was going to go to the Delta State Governor, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa. This has not upset so many things within the party, but there are those who are still aggrieved that the man who came second in the battle for the ticket for the presidency in the party, Nyesom Wike, was left out. And then also, outside of the party, the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum is kicking, and very seriously so, about the decision of Okowa to accept the nomination to be Atiku's running mate. Why? They said there was an agreement by leaders of the South that it is the turn of the South to produce the president in 2023, and that even Okowa, as the chairman of the South-South Governors Forum, was host at some point to a meeting of the governors where they categorically said it should be the turn of the South. So why then did they give in to accept the vice presidential slot? It's still in contention within the party and outside of it. But the more interesting aspect is for the APC and the Labour Party that decided to choose a placeholder as vice presidential candidate. What does a placeholder mean? It means submitting someone's name who you know is not the candidate and will ultimately be changed. There are fears about this within both parties and in the political circle, as the APC has chosen Kabir Ibrahim Masari to be the running mate of his presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and for the Labour Party Dr. Dele Okupe to stand in as a vice presidential candidate to Peter Obi. A placeholder fears could, at the end of the day, decide on not stepping down, because there is a provision that requires a placeholder to write to the Independent National Electoral Commission ceding his place to someone else. And this danger was properly encapsulated by a Lagos-based legal practitioner, Inibere Effiong, in an article made available to the Igbo Online. It's a long quote, but I need to quote him for emphasis here. Effiong wrote, "This is a risky political arrangement. It is not rooted in law. The individuals so nominated are the vice presidential candidates of the APC and the Labour Party. However, Tinubu and Obi and their parties can substitute them if the conditions stated above are met by the placeholders. The associated risk with this arrangement is that if the placeholders subsequently fail or refuse to withdraw as expected or agreed in writing after they have been validly nominated, the parties and the presidential candidates will have no choice but to stick with them to the end of the election. The suggestion that a vice presidential candidate can be substituted at will or randomly is erroneous. The position of vice president is selective, not appointive. As the Supreme Court correctly stated in Attorney General of the Federation versus Atiku Abubakar, 2007, 10 NWLR Part 10411, a vice president is the vice president of the country, not of the political party under which he was elected. It should also be noted that by Section 142 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, a person cannot be validly elected as president except to nominate another candidate as his associate from the same political party to run with him to occupy the office of vice president if they are elected. In summary, a vice presidential candidate is a candidate. See the case of James Abiodun Falike versus INEC and another in 2016. Thus, the conditions for valid withdrawal and or substitution of candidacy under Section 31 and 33 of the Electoral Act 2022 are equally applicable to a vice presidential candidate. The difference is that the process of substituting a vice presidential candidate upon valid withdrawal does not involve the conduct of primary election. The reason is that the vice presidential candidacy is bettered by and incidental to the nomination of a presidential candidate. Presidential candidates, political parties, the media, and the general public are advised not to trivialize the process of nominating a vice presidential candidate. I understand that some political parties resorted to this arrangement in order to beat the deadline for submission of nominations set by INEC. But as earlier posited, this arrangement is not without risk. However, it is not known if any of the two parties adopted the style of the APC when it sold expression of interest and nomination forms to the aspirants for its primaries and attached a pre-withdrawal form to it. The form, like was earlier reported by the Igbo Online, had to be pre-signed and must be submitted with other forms. So this then brings to the fore the development in the APC, where two senatorial candidates refused to step down for those favored by the party, and which is where the fear of someone like Effiong lays in the choice of a placeholder. Two persons who did not meet the nomination deadline, that is the President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, and the former Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, for the senatorial contests in their respective districts, are finding it difficult to get the tickets that they believe are being held in trust for them by other persons. In the case of Lawan, Bashir Mashina, who won the Yobe North Senatorial District primaries of the APC, has refused to hand over to him. For Akpabio, for Akwa Ibom Northwest Senatorial District, a retired DIG, Udom Ekpodom, has also refused to step down for him. Though the party has gone ahead to submit the names of both Lawan and Akpabio to the Independent National Electoral Commission, the fear, and a big one at that, is that these two contestants who eventually became candidates, that is Machina and Ekpodom, are likely to head to the courts. This is more so in the case of Akpabio, where the Independent National Electoral Commission has said through its resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State, Mike Igini, that it does not recognize the rerun primaries that produced him. Rather, it is sticking with the primaries that produced Ekpodom. Will the placeholder vice presidential candidates go the same way? That is a question that will be answered in the next few days as the Labour Party and All Progressive Congress go nearer the 2023 elections. For both the APC and the Labour Party, the internal workings of the parties have necessitated them to put in placeholders. In the case of the APC, consultations, as we reported the last time on this show, is still ongoing on who to nominate as a vice presidential candidate. Like we also reported in the last episode, it is still an open race that involves governors from the north. Those who have been penciled for this position are the Kano State Governor, Abdullahi Ganduje, the Kaduna State Governor, Nasir El-Rufai, the Jigawa State Governor, Abubakar Badawi, and the Governor of Borno State, Babagana Zulum. Also coming up is the name of a former governor of Borno State, who is believed to also be very close to the candidates of the APC and also highly favored. For the Labour Party, it is an arrangement that may probably see the party and the new Nigeria People's Party collapse their structures into one. For the candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, and that of the NNPP, Ibrahim Kwakwanso, to work together as presidential and vice presidential candidates. The talk in town is that if this happens, Peter Obi will fly the presidential flag, while Kwakwanso will run as the vice presidential candidate. How this turns out remains to be seen in the next few weeks also, just as it is the case with the APC. Going back to the Ekiti State Election, we say a big congratulations to the winner of the election and candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Dotun Oladipo. He was a few hours ago announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission as the winner. He defeated Engineer Shegun of the Social Democratic Party and Bisi Kolawole of the People's Democratic Party. The chief returning officer of the election, Professor Kayode Adebowale, declared the APC and its candidates winners of the election in the early hours of Sunday in Ekiti, the Ekiti state capital. According to Adebowale, Uyibanji scored 187,057 votes to defeat his closest challengers, while Oni polled 82,211 votes. Kolawole garnered 67,457 votes. Uyibanji won in 15 of the 16 local government areas of the state, while Kolawole took just one. The PDP candidate secured victory in F1 local government area. So what are the lessons from the Ekiti election? One is that politicians should learn not to play God. And by this, we are talking specifically about the former governor of the state, Ayo Fayoshi, who, before the election, played a lot of cards and ended up injuring his own legs. What happened? From day one, the former governor promised his former deputy, Olushola Ileka, the ticket of the party. At some point, after Ileka claimed he had spent money, practically his life savings, preparing for the election, and having put all his energies into preparing for the election, Fayoshi changed his mind and opted for Kolawole. Same happened to Shegun, who many believed deserved the ticket of the PDP. At the point he was shoved aside, Oni then opted out and went in the direction of the Social Democratic Party. The thinking, even if the result doesn't show so now, has been that if Shegun had combined with Fayoshi and all the agreed members of the PDP, including Ileka, who was a former deputy governor, it would have been a better show for the PDP in that election. It could have perhaps have given the party a fighting chance against the APC. There is also lessons on the side of the sitting governor in the state, that is Dr. Kayode Fayemi. This time around, he has benefited from his ability to make up with his political foes. For instance, after the APC primaries, a lot of aggrieved aspirants threatened to leave the party. One of them was Senator Bamidele Opeyemi. But he was prevailed on, and he stayed on and was given back his senatorial ticket so that he could return to the Senate. Another foe of the governor, with whom he has had some falling out, Prince Dayo Adeyeye, a former minister, also did not leave the party. Obviously because he was working for the presidential ticket of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the head of the Southwest agenda for Bola Tinubu 2023. In the presidency, another key participant in the Ekiti political scene, Babafemi Ojudu, was unusually calm. And this was largely because he was engaged with the presidential bid of the vice president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. This kept all of them busy and in tune, because the fear had been, if there had been a falling out, it would have been disastrous. And many have said the master stroke for Fayemi was his decision to step down for Tinubu at the presidential primaries of the APC. The thinking and the permutation was that if Tinubu had not gotten the presidential ticket of the APC because of the decisions of some of the Southwest aspirants not to step down for him, he would likely, despite denial at that time, have opted for the Social Democratic Party, where he would certainly have given the aspiration of Oni a solid backing. And this could have been a game changer. But you know, Dr. Kayode Fayemi played his card so well that nothing went wrong this time around, giving the party a very solid win. As things are, the APC is on solid ground in Ekiti, and we can only wish the governor-elect, Dotun Oladipo, a peaceful tenure and a beneficial one to the people of Ekiti State, despite the issue of bribery associated with the election, leading the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission busting into an arena where some persons were arrested. This brings us to the end of this edition of the program. Don't forget, you can always contribute to the program with a 2-minute video or an email of not more than 500 words that is not abusive and straight to the point. Send them to this email address, dotunoladipo@gmail.com. I take that again, dotunoladipo@gmail.com. Until we see on the next episode, it's bye from me. Thank you.